Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys and gals a little bit about the idea the test life is the best life. And I'm going to be someone who just states it's like it is, and it's ridiculous that we even have these ideas anymore in the lifting world, that there's a whole community that has this whole anti-testosterone view, because the reality is that seriously carries back over into politics. That is entirely a political issue that went back to fair play in sports, and quite frankly, had none of that ever happened, no one would even care. In other words, if we didn't have the media stuff about Lyle Alzado, which was not even anabolic through testosterone that caused that, that's a whole separate situation for a substance that is no longer even medically available, because guess what? It caused brain cancer, right? Not even manufactured, you can't get it anymore. For decades. But I digress. That aside, and all the stuff with the Cold War and the Russians, and this becoming a big political issue on the Senate floor with Senator Joe Biden leading the spearhead against doping in baseball. All right, this all happened in my lifetime. Had none of this stuff been done, we wouldn't be having these conversations at all, because mainstream is pro-testosterone. Right? We see it everywhere. Testosterone, TRT, longevity clinics. It's become the norm. It really has become the norm. And we get these ridiculous ideas in from the lifting world, and everyone, oh, these are terrible. It's horrible health effects. But, well, where's your evidence of that? And then people get upset by that. Oh, man, because we had that one long-term study to where all the researchers admitted, looking back at historical trends in sports, they couldn't find any actual evidence that the net effect of using anabolics by elite athletes historically reduced lifespan. The problem is they didn't have the ability to do multivariate analysis, but the problem is they took samples of people who they knew were almost guaranteed from the 60s and 70s or whatever to have been on, and they found that on average their lifespan exceeded the general population. So they kind of concluded, if we go off the evidence, the lifestyles associated by the athletes who use these things, their net total lifestyle appears to be better than the general population when it was all said and done, irrespective of whatever risk factors were involved with the cure. So this kind of creates a scientific conundrum, because medically speaking, if we were to go off the evidence we have, we don't really have evidence that when a totality of lifestyle is factored in, that people who use these things even have an equal lifespan, let alone a shorter one to the general population. I mean, if we go off the only data we have, they're more likely to outlive the average person. That's, again, this is purely what the data shows. And I'm not saying it's accurate. We know there could be risks associated. But do you see where we're going with this? It tends to show that just being a non-athlete and living a normal lifestyle, eating normal foods, predisposes you to just live less longer than chemically enhanced athletes. Wow. That's basically what the scientists concluded. They're like, yeah, sorry, this is what we have. What do you want us to do? Okay, what do you want us to do? So if we go purely off that, then the same thing, we had all these studies. Not even talking, so everyone's like, TRT, I'm not even talking about TRT. We're talking about super physiological amounts. And the same thing, we had the studies for, up to 300, 600 milligrams of testosterone. All right, we saw these clinical trials. There was no indication that they were even harmful to health. Like there was no indication from any of these 5-month-long studies that these test subjects were predisposed to any real health risk at all. Okay, so you see where we're going with this? Not saying they aren't there, it's just that we have a lack of evidence. Again, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. I'm aware of this. What do you guys have? All we really have is, well, a bunch of these bodybuilders die, but these bodybuilders use quantities of substances that are 10, 20, 30, 50 times the amount other people are using. And they all use recreational drugs, and they're all 300 pounds, and they use diuretics and insulin and all this other crazy cocktails of things. What does that have to do with the testosterone? What happens with the other case studies of all the lifters who lived to be into their 70s, who stayed on hefty amounts of these things for life? Like Louis Simmons, perfect example. Like, so what are we supposed to do with that? You know? So really, when you look at it, it's just a whole ideology. It's a political thing. It's all about purity. Purity in sports, purity in bodybuilding. But does anybody care about that outside of a small niche community? And that's the idea. So many people do these things. The number who do is enormous. You know, then people get these ideas. Well, they see people who are clearly on stuff, and that's become their idea of what can be done naturally because of the fake natties, right? And then they don't seem, the average person out there involved in that doesn't seem to realize how many people who are really small and weak use testosterone and other stuff, still use it. It's more common than you realize, who actually still don't achieve the results of the better natties, the more gifted, harder working, longer term natties, right? They don't even reach their level by any means, you know, and yet, so here we are. So then we have this idea that everyone, they thinks if you're discussing this, that you must look like a pro bodybuilder. That's the only possible option right there. It's like there's no concept in people's minds that plenty of people enjoy the quality of life from these things that 10% of the amount a pro bodybuilder uses. Or 5% of what they use. And people think I'm kidding. That's still super physiological. That's still more than the body would produce. Can I see where we're going? So what? You're kidding. No, I'm not kidding. I'm dead serious. I think you understand how much bodybuilders use. And people have lost sight of this. You know, so then because of that, there's this idea, well, only then pro athletes and pro body. Really, what about all the fringe benefits? What about all the sex performance? What about the mood benefits, the cognitive benefits, the focus, the concentration, the confidence, the reduced depression? What about all that? We're just going to ignore all that because people are so caught up in what pro bodybuilders look like or what they think, you know, oh, anyone who uses stuff must look like Ronnie Coleman. Yeah, nobody looked like Ronnie Coleman but Ronnie Coleman. You know, see where we're going with this? Guys who were using 10 grams of gear still weren't looking like him, right? So ridiculous, right? Ridiculous. But no one wants to come to terms with that. It's just this whole weird anti-testosterone ideology when the reality is test life's the best life. It's actually pretty awesome. It's actually pretty awesome. And most people who do so agree, including medical doctors I know who do so. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.